Do you think pigeons have feelings?
No.
You and the pigeons.
I said it as a joke once. And welcome back to Pub for Heretics. You'll be joined by myself, Blake, and...
This is James.
And I am Corbin, as always.
And we're going to be kicking off the rest of the Imperium histories, going from the Great Crusade in previous episode, and now we're going to be going into the Heresy of Horus.
Our favourite part, the Heresy.
It is quite big. I had to condense a lot of this for you, James. A lot of this context is going to be missed, because... How many books is Horus Heresy? About 55? 52, yeah, something like that. Something ridiculous. It's one of the biggest series of all time, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot that happens. But a lot of it we'll cover in each Primarch's individual story, because that plays, obviously we'll go through their part in the Heresy, and that'll make more sense after we've done those.
There's 52 books. I can't even get through the first one.
Yeah, Horus Rising, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm up to
52.
the 18th book or something like that.
No.
I'm up to 19 or 20 if we're counting the Siege of Terra books.
Jeez.
But I think they're on their own series, aren't they?
No, they're part of the Heresy.
Are they part of the Heresy series?
They're considered in the Heresy series.
Bloody hell.
Fair
Too
enough.
many books.
Yeah. So I've had to try and condense everything that I know, and then also try and find out stuff that I haven't read in other books, just to try and get this episode sorted for us today. But do you remember what happened last episode, James?
Oh, it was a couple of weeks ago, but I remember little bits of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you remember what happened last?
No, I don't remember what happened last.
Okay, so
do you remember the scattering of the Primarchs?
I do remember the scattering of the
Primarchs being yeeted across the galaxy, and then the Emperor had to go on his great crusade to find them all.
Yes,
and then
I do remember. Yeah, he was trying to find them, and I thought that they were all babies, but they were actually full of grown adults.
Yeah, because they grew to
It was
full
a few-
size in a couple of years.
for some it was a couple of decades until he found them, and then for some it was 100 years or 200 years until he found all of them. So some of them had lived on their planets and their cultures for a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
And then there were some that had their childhoods and young adult lives with them. But Primarchs can grow to the full adult size by the age of 3, and then they're full size by at least their teenage years.
So are they drinking it too?
I would. I don't see that. It wouldn't matter because they can't get drunk.
Oh,
because their bodies would filter out poison.
But
So, anyways,
Lehman Russ certainly was.
yeah,
Wow.
He was sculling Mjod with the wolf,
At 1?
with
Yeah.
his wolf mother.
yeah, probably I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we ended that the last episode with the Imperium of Man being at the height of their power. All the Primarchs, or 18 out of the 20 at least, as far as we know, were found.
Yeah.
And all of them were loyal in brackets.
Well,
but
they all served the Emperor.
they all serve the Emperor, but degrees of loyalty is probably the best way of saying it.
Yeah, well, even the ones that were like Kurz
Kurz and
was
Angron,
doing
yeah.
some horrific shit.
But they were doing it in the name of the Emperor.
In the name of the Emperor.
Yeah.
He was flaying people and dropping blood out of his ships onto
Yeah.
the citizens to instill fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
For
on top,
the Emperor.
Exactly, for the Emperor. And on
Not chaosy at all.
No. No. And yeah, humanity is at its highest point of it. I can't overstate how much they were this close to taking over the galaxy, because they had no real threats, because they deal with the orcs at Ullanor, as I'm about to get into. The Eldar are kind of hiding because their foresight's, this ain't going to last long, but they're just going to hide. Nids haven't turned up. Votan are still in the core. Who else are we forgetting? Tau aren't a thing yet. They weren't even an idea yet. And then Necrons are asleep. And there's a bunch of others.
Yeah, the Necrons haven't woken up, and the smaller of the smaller alien Xenos races, we hear about a few, but most of them are each one is only in its own solar system or star system. It's not actually
not comparable to the Eldar or the Orcs, but they're still
not far-reaching.
Okay, go, yeah.
The Orcs are still putting up a good fight. The green skin against humanity.
They're the only major threat apart from humanity itself.
Because the elves are cowards and they're hiding in the webway.
Yeah, because they see what's going to happen next.
So with the demons, they don't really.
Demons are biding their time until now.
Okay.
They're sowing the seeds of chaos and corruption as they're going along, but they're not a presence.
Yeah, there
But
were
they-
small groups of cultists on like single worlds, but
Okay.
they're dealt with pretty easily by
Yeah.
Okay.
18 fucking Primarchs. Like,
But yeah, they were this close. This is them at their strongest.
Yeah.
But now we're going to get into where we picked off with, and we're going to get into Ullanor. Ullanor was the main capital planet of the Orcs at this point, where they all kind of like rallied to try and take on the Emperor.
it was the biggest force of green
The biggest force of greenskins, matched with the biggest force of humanity as far as we're aware.
Yes.
The Emperor, and I think it was like 9 of the 18 Primarchs, like at least half.
9 once Magnus decided to join.
Yeah, finally, John. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine that, like 9 Primarchs and all of their respective legions. Well,
Each
most of
one
them.
with about 10,000 Space Marines.
Oh, no,
So
no,
the-
no,
the-
like 50,000 plus each, like way more than that.
Because at this point they
like
didn't
the base
have.
average was 100,000 Marines per legion.
Yeah, true.
Because at this point they didn't have any caps on how many.
No cap. So
So it
18
was like-
legions could just kept growing.
Thousand
The-
Suns was still pretty small. They were over 1,000 at this point, but barely.
in comparison, but like
Yeah.
they're still a force to be
Yeah.
reckoned with.
Yeah.
The two to keep this in mind, the 2 largest marine legions were the Ultramarines with 250,000 or so, and then next to that were the Word Bearers.
Oh,
so,
okay.
so remember that.
Yeah,
Lorgar
Word
and his boys.
Okay.
So Horus and the other Primarchs that were there. The others were out like throughout the rest of the galaxy, doing their own thing.
Yep.
And the Emperor himself led the battle against these greenskins. Various fights happened, and the Emperor, I think, nearly died, or that was another previous fight. And then the Warmaster, Horus, stepped in. Sorry, he's not the Warmaster yet.
Yeah.
Now, it was after this battle, after they had won, where the Emperor said to his sons and to all the Space Marine legions present that I'm going to be going back to Terra. I am stepping back from the Great Crusade, and the Warmaster Horus, who I dubbed the Warmaster, is now going to be the leader. And he listened to him as if it was my own orders.
Yeah.
Marines were upset by this. Like, they're just like, it's like your god is leaving you, but not the god in the same way, because like they're just like our
Their
leader.
their
But it's like
leader
our
is-
leader
Yeah. It's gone.
is going back home.
Yeah.
And some of the brothers were happy with the appointment of Horus as Warmaster. Some of them were just like Dorn and Fulgrim, for example, were just like, good job. Like,
Yeah.
that like good choice.
Gilliman didn't want it, and he was like, yeah,
Gilliman didn't
Horus
want it,
should
yeah.
have had it.
Whereas others were a bit annoyed by this and thought that they could have done a better job.
Why were they overlooked? But
think-
I want to go back just for a second, because it's a very small detail, but it's always stuck with me. So Horus was the one who killed the leader of the Orcs on Ullanor.
Yep.
The Emperor then held up the Orc's head and demanded that, like, the remembrances, the humans that, like, are the artists and stuff, make a big shrine about him, like, basically holding Ullanor in his hand.
Yeah.
And
As
that
like the
later
final
in-
defeat of the Orcs.
as the
yeah.
final defeat of the Orcs in their ideas. And then demanded that this big painting end up, but it actually ends up on Horus's flagship.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
So at this point, they don't know that they just regrow like the fungus. Like
No,
that
they do.
don't-
They are aware, but they've
Yeah.
just decimated them and decimated
To
their
a
numbers
point where
so
they
bad
think
that
that
they're not even a threat anymore.
They're not a threat.
Yeah, and
At
once
this-
they're
or at
on
this
that
point.
world and they've taken over it, they can leave a bunch of Astartes there to deal with any more uprisings. of
Yeah, yeah.
Orcs.
Yeah.
'Cause it would be like you'd just be killing off the.
You'd never get rid of orcs because, like, there's that joke where, if you have an army, a whole guardsman standing on every inch of the planet, the orc population's still going to be low. It's,
Yeah.
it's never non-existent.
Not
But, like,
zero.
you can manage it to the point where, like, you're managing weeds in your
Yeah.
own garden.
Yeah, instead of a sea of orcs, you're
Yeah.
dealing with small uprisings.
yeah.
So then, of course, the Emperor's like, I'm going to go back to Terra. Not going to tell you why. I'm not going to give you the exact reason as to why I'm going back.
Lol
I'm,
Lamau.
but I'm taking, lol Lamau. But I'm taking Dorn with the Imperial Fists that are the best ones when it comes to
Defense and
building defense.
fortification.
Yeah, and leaving the defense of the solar system to Dorn.
But not if you ask Purdy.
Yeah, no, but who cares? But it's also around this time as well when the Edict of Nikea came about. And if you want to know more about the Edict of Nikea, go check out our episode of What Magnus Did Nothing Wrong. but to summarize it, it was basically a council to try and determine whether or not the Imperium can use psyker powers going forward.
As dictated by the biggest psyker.
Yeah, ironically. And then with Big E presiding and judging depending on, the pro or anti debates. Mortarion was definitely against it, along with a couple of Space Wolves, irony allowed. And on top of that, Sanguinius, Khan, and Magnus especially were trying to push for it. In the end, the librarians were the Marines that used psychers were disbanded. They were told never to use their psyker powers again, and if you were caught using your psyker powers, you would be in breach of Nikea and put before the Emperor on trial. Interesting thing as well, that doesn't just apply to Space Marines, that's applied to all of humanity. And
apart from navigators.
Yeah, navigators
and astropaths.
Astropathia, because they were deemed useful. So obviously there was a lot of caveats in that rule. And I obviously think it was a big mistake for him to do that.
Absolutely.
For the reasons that I'm about to detail now. It's also around this time as well there was dissenting views about Emperor, like, the Emperor has abandoned us, Horus didn't, I put more faith in Horus than I do the Emperor, blah blah blah. In this time as well, the Lectitio Divitatis, however you say it, came into play a little bit more. It was basically... What do you think it is when I say that, James?
I have no idea.
Well, the second part is divine.
But there's so many times that you'll say something, I'm like, oh, yep, I know what that is. And it'll be like the most backwards, like...
Okay, well, who do we think is divine?
I mean, just the dude on the chair.
The dude on the chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty much.
Yeah.
It's a book about it.
It's a Bible about the Emperor
being a god.
Being a god.
And how he hates religion.
No.
But
they were still doing it. This book is basically calling him a god.
Yeah, it wasn't written by the Emperor.
Yeah, despite the fact the Emperor didn't want that. So it started reaching circulation. People have, little sects have started growing about seeing the Emperor as a god.
But do you want to say
I'm getting into it.
Right, cool.
I can see your eyes. I see your eyes looking right at me when I'm thinking it. This book was written 40 years before that by Lorgar and the Wordbearers. But then Emperor chastised them for that and said, this is not what I wanted. And the Wordbearers were the slowest at making compliant worlds, but that's because they were converting the populace towards the Emperor and their light.
Against his will, essentially.
Against his direct orders.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to do an impromptu Guess That Grimdark. So, does Big E forgive Lorgar, but asks him to change his ways? Does Big E take the Ultramarines and burn their equivalent of Jerusalem? Or does Big E go to Lorgar and kill him? What does he do?
I would say the Jerusalem one, the second one.
You are correct. That is exactly what happened.
Of course he does.
So he got the Ultramarines. Yeah, I know. He got the Ultramarines, and then I'm not God, and then proceeds to make all of them psychically bow in front of him, like go take a knee in front of him.
Yeah.
And
Lorgar's like, you are a god, and the Emperor gets mad. And so there are over 10,000, 50,000
more than that,
word bearers, in front of him, and it psychically blows them all away
to the point where armor is coming off of them.
Yeah, and while the Emperor is shouting, "I am not a god!"
Hypocritically.
So hypocritically.
And obviously Lorgar's like, okay, God.
Yeah. Is the Emperor meant to be the good guy in this story? Because
yes,
he's never the good guy.
I'm like, when
he a good guy.
When is he being good?
Okay, so and basically chastised them for this, and then the planet was called Monarchia and burned the several bigger cities to the ground, and it became a dead world.
Well, before the Monarchia was burnt before that, the Ultramarines basically exterminated the world. Yeah. They went down, they told everybody to get off the planet.
No, you get out of the cities because they burned the cities.
Get out of the cities, yeah.
But
because
the problem is that
the Ultramarines are the actual good guys.
Yeah.
So they were doing right by
they were get all the population out. We don't want to kill everybody, but we're destroying your cities.
We've got to do this.
And then they dropped big bombs from their ships and blew everything up.
Because this city had nothing but effigies and statues to the Emperor and seeing the Space Marines as literal angels.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then obviously having that kind of humbling experience sowed the seeds of corruption for the Lorgar and the Wordbearers. The Lorgar and the Wordbearers were the first technical traitors and heretics because they went on a pilgrimage. We'll get into Lorgar and his
But
other
it
story,
seems like
but
they
basically-
were ground zero. Like they
They
were
were basically, yeah.
They were there when it all
Yeah.
kicked off. So
Well, yeah, that happened, and Lorgar's like, okay, well maybe the
This is-
Emperor is a god,
this
but
is
he's
a
not a
shit,
god
yeah.
worth worshipping.
Going further into that as well, going towards just after Ullanor, the new Warmaster Horus, and he renamed his legion from the Lunar Wolves to the Sons of Horus, going from like a white armor to a sea green armor. They were then accompanied by a wordbearer captain named Erebus. Remember this guy's name.
Erebus.
A
Okay.
word-
Everybody
remember-
hates Erebus.
Remember, wordbearer captain.
Okay.
First
Yeah,
chaplain.
he's first chaplain. Yeah.
Yeah.
In their journey of taking over the galaxy and like going from planet to planet, trying to help out the brothers, that kind of thing, they came across a human colony with alien serfs in their society, which they already were like. But then this colony claimed that the Legion had stolen like a powerful warp-powered knife, and Horus and the Legion in turn wiped them out for the insult, and that what they thought was just a false flag to attack them, so they wiped them out.
Yeah.
But remember that.
Okay.
They were like, oh, you guys stole our knife. And the Space Marine were like, no, die.
Well, no, they attacked first and then they attacked, but they think it was like a false flag sort of thing.
Yeah.
So then, this is what happens in the Horus Rising book, by the way, the one that you're reading at the moment. This is what happens. And then they end up going to a planet called Davin, saying that something had happened to this planet because they had already made it compliance on there. And they had made it, but then the problem is that they went there and it's just disgusting. Everything is covered in rot. Everything that should be like a forest is actually a swamp. And
So
it's just-
Nurgle.
Nurgle, you're catching on. Nurgle has turned up, and then Horus, in his pride, takes on the commander that he left in charge, who he thought he could trust, and he's just become like this bloated Nurgle mess. And then out comes the warp-powered knife.
Oh.
And then throughout the fight,
So he did steal the knife.
Somebody did.
somebody did.
Wow.
And then here's the thing:
A certain
Horus
first
beats him,
chaplain.
but then the problem is that he gets a lucky stab in him.
Yeah,
and
just like a cut,
this-
but it's a
yeah.
poisonous cut.
Yeah, and then the warp-powered knife infects him to the point where his Primarch genes can't beat it. So he's like, what the fuck is happening? What's happening? And then he goes into a coma.
This
Horus.
is Horus.
This is
all
Horus. Horus the Warmaster goes into a coma.
Yeah, and he's carried out by
He's carried out by the Mortal.
Loken and like his
Right-hand man, Abaddon, is one of them as
yeah,
well.
they all
And
carry him out. and
Abaddon
take
is
him-
Horus's first captain as well.
Okay.
and they carry him back to the ship, and the humans are all on the ship are all
Like,
like,
oh, what's happened to the
what's happened?
Warmaster?"
What's
Yeah.
happened? The Space Marines literally trudge through the humans, killing like 30 or 40 of them.
Just, like, get out of the
Just
way.
like backhanding them
Yeah.
and taking people's heads off. Like,
Yeah.
Get out of the way, the Warmaster.
yeah, the Warmaster's dying.
And also need to point out as well that during this point as well, the Space Marines are starting to feel like they're not being like respected, and they feel like they're being nudged out of politics because now it's starting. The Great Crusade is starting to get closer and closer to a peacetime, and it's
Yeah.
almost complete. So a lot of Space Marines are just like, well, what are we meant to do
What are we
afterwards?
gonna do?
What are we
Yeah.
going to do? Like,
If
we're
it-
not
if there's
built
peace,
for
then-
this.
yeah.
Yeah, and there
Almost.
are Astra Militarum generals, like human generals, that are being
Are now
appointed
commanding them.
over planets
Yeah.
instead of Space Marines. So they're like, well,
They should
we're
be.
about to be
And the
phased
high-
out like the
Yeah.
And the Space Marines did originally, I think, have a place on the High Lords of Terror, but then they were nudged out.
yes.
And that's also led to a little bit of dissenting views, like, well, what the hell are we meant to do now that like that? So that's also the mindset of Space Marines. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So Horus is now in this coma, and he goes on sort of a vision quest because the Chaos Gods are showing him the supposed lies of the Emperor and slowly corrupting him.
Well, Erebus is.
He's shown, he's shown a potential future where humanity is a zealot worshipping empire, worshipping the Emperor as a god. And he sees the masses walking past him, huddled with their faces pointed towards the ground. He is then confronted with a giant statue of the Emperor, surrounded by only half of his brothers. He sees Guilliman, Dorn, Sanguinius, Leman Russ, Korax, the Lion, Vulcan, Ferris, and the Khan, but not him and his other brothers, not the other 9. So he's like, where am I? Is this the future? Do I just get discarded along with the rest of my troubled brothers? Am I just put into like the bucket with like Kurz and Angron?
Yeah.
Like what's going on?
Because-
It's important
and
to
then-
note that he's being led through all of this by Erebus.
Yeah, this is intentional as well.
Erebus has disguised himself, but it is Erebus who's like leading him through all this.
Yeah.
But he's also, because he's seeing the
He's seeing the
nine
technical
loyalists.
future, yeah.
Yeah, and then the
But-
others are
yeah.
part of chaos. Like that's what he's seeing.
Yeah, but he
as-
doesn't know that. He's not
No.
given the context
No.
that this is going to be the future, even if he continues with this pathway.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he's only given half the story.
half the story.
And then a red wolf turns up.
Yeah, I'm getting to that.
You're getting to that?
Yeah,
No,
getting to
sorry, I
that.
know.
Yeah.
I love that
He's
bit.
but at that point, he's also shown the past, not just the future. It's like a nightmare. Like, not what's the story about Scrooge?
Oh, yes, yeah, with the
Christmas
ghost...
Carol.
Yeah,
Christmas Carol, where he's
Carol.
showing the present, the past, and the future.
Yeah.
In the past, he's shown what happens with the scattering of the Primarchs,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then there's a bit of a confrontational dialogue there. Going to get into that in
Well,
another
we
episode.
talked about that in the last
in
episode,
the last
where he
episode.
goes back and he sees the scattering of the Primarchs, and the
Primarchs.
Emperor holds his hand up, and then he's like, sees the future, and he's like,
And then we're
whatever,
not-
and
Whatever.
lets them get scattered.
because we're not sure, like, time fuckery and all that kind of stuff. But he is there and he does see it. But during this time as well, Magnus is aware of this and is trying to stop this corruption. He's trying to intercede and trying to like stop Erebus from corrupting Horus.
yeah.
And but he also then tries to warn Big E. And like we said in our other episode, Kool-Aid Man went through the psychic barrier that because the Emperor was working on his Webway project.
Yeah.
And then in so doing created a giant warp rift above Earth, and now Biggie has to stay on his throne to keep that from from demons overflowing. Because
Yeah.
these demons fucked up the planet. Like the Imperial Fists and the Custodes Guard did their best to take them out, but they also got like asses handed to them. Yeah, I'm also paraphrasing from what Master of Mankind because I haven't read it.
Yeah.
But this is essentially what happens, and now Magnus rebelled against the Edict of Nikea, so Emperor is like, I'm not happy with this. So he sends Russ and the Space Wolves to bring Magnus back for trial. But Horus intervenes.
Yeah.
Well,
Because Horus is now awake. Oh no, sorry, I'm missing a
Yes.
bit. I'm missing a bit. So Horus is in this kind of comatose coma situation, and he's like dying, and the healers are like, we don't know what to do, and then a hand comes on their shoulder, and it's Erebus, and Erebus says, I just saw your face.
yeah, you're getting it.
Erebus says, I know what to do. I can fix him. I can do a ritual. And emphasis on the word ritual.
Yeah, take him to this planet.
Take him down to Davin on a planet where there's a temple, and I can do a ritual, and I can bring him back. And Abaddon and the rest of the Mournival are just kind of like, yeah, sure, go for it. But whereas Loken and Tormagaddon are like, what?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
can you not?
Yeah, this is the
almost-
first. This is the first 3 books of the Horus Heresy.
It's almost like the what is it? The one in Batman where Ra's al Ghul,
Yeah.
the water that they go into to
Lazarus
resurrect
pit.
Lazarus
Lazarus
pit,
pit, yeah.
to resurrect people, but they come back
All crazy and
a
shit.
little
yeah.
bit loopy.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the same thing. Like
Very much, except
yeah.
that the ritual involves like killing a bunch of other people and using that blood and eating the hearts to like bring
Yeah,
them back.
it's that kind of messed up
it's
stuff. But now Horus, the ritual is completed. Horus has come back, but now he's come back with a different mindset.
yeah,
a bit
'cause he's
tainted.
seen
Yeah.
he's seen what the possible future is.
And not just
Yeah.
that, he's had warp fuckery just pumped through his veins.
Yeah,
and
and
of
he's just like,
course.
I've been unveiled the truth of the deal that you made, of the Emperor made with the Chaos Gods, and that you didn't fulfill.
Yep.
Anyways,
Got you.
so yeah, Emperor sends Russ and the Space Wolves to bring Magnus for trial. Horus intervenes and sent another message saying, no, change your plans, kill him and his whole legion in the planet.
Magnus.
Kill Magnus.
Magnus.
Kill Magnus,
Oh.
the Thousand Sons, and all of Prospero, his planet.
Yep.
And Russ is like, yes, sir.
So like a good loyal Primarch, that's exactly what he did. He obliterated Magnus and the Thousand Sons.
Turning up with some Sisters of Silence.
Yeah, do you know what Sisters of Silence are?
No.
They're a faction they're a small sub-faction that you can bring in with Custodes armies. Basically what they are, so Custodes
Are
defend...
they the female custodians?
They're not the female, not the
Not-
female
not
Custodes.
Not those
No.
female
They're
custodians.
they're
okay.
different. And
So we haven't explained what blanks are, so we should probably
no,
explain that.
Yeah, I've already got that said.
Yeah.
So, blanks are a type of breed of human, like that have a mutation where the warp doesn't affect them. They have basically no soul in the warp.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so they basically have no soul on the warp. Nothing on the warp can affect them, and that's basically what these Sisters of Silence do. So the Custodian Guard are meant for physical, like, attacks and like can hold back anything.
Yeah.
But the Sisters of Silence are there specialized to take on psychic threats. So if a
okay.
demon or if a psyker tried to kill the Emperor, the blanks are there and just be like, nah, because you can't use your powers around me because I'm a blank.
A blank, yep.
Yeah, there's a little bit more to them, but we'll go over
So,
that in
so
its
much
own
more.
episode.
They got their own episode.
Yeah.
But essentially that's what they are. Lehman Russ had a bunch of these with him as well as his Space Wolf.
Because the Thousand Suns were all magic users, they all
Magic
relied
users,
on it, and then
perfect
suddenly they
counter
can't
for them.
use their magic.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they get obliterated by the Space Wolves that are all about like fighting. They're the Vikings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on top of that, Magnus had basically his back broken, and just so much happened.
Yeah. Russ lifts him up, breaks his back over his knee.
Wrestling style.
Yeah.
You'd
Like the proper
Undertaker.
Bane did to Batman.
Bane did to
Yeah.
Batman, basically. And it's at that point where, again, we'll get into his own episode, but he was forced to retreat with all of his remaining 1,000 sons, which are now literally 1,000 of them left, or 1,000 or so.
Yeah.
And having to make a deal with Tzeentch in order to the God of Change.
Which we
Yep.
talked about in the Magnus
We did,
episode.
but I think there's a bit more to it as well when we get into Araman and we get into Magnus.
Yes.
But that's basically what happened. And then they retreated into the warp.
Okay.
And-
And this is just because Magnus has been so broken that they need to basically do the similar thing to Horus, like resurrect
It's
him,
a similar ritual of sorts, but now a deal has been made with Tzeentch.
Chaos Demon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on top of that, now the wolves, the Space Wolves, are also taken out of the race for the most part because this also obliterated them in this fight because they were also going up against. It's basically jocks against nerds,
Yeah.
or wizards
Yeah.
versus barbarians, if you want to look at it that way.
But then also, Russ was a bit like, what have I done?
Yeah, he
Afterwards.
like here's the thing. Lehman Russ did not want to do this. He really hated the idea of doing this, and that he was trying to do whatever he could to. But the thing is that like we said in the other episode, Magnus didn't want to talk. He just wanted to take his punishment.
Yeah.
But there was just layers of miscommunication. Anyways, continuing on. Horus declares rebellion. Because how he declared rebellion was he talked to Angron of the World Eaters, he spoke to Fulgrim of the Emperor's Children, and Mortarion of the Death Guard.
And Lorgar.
And Lorgar. But mainly these ones
What
because
about Abby?
Abaddon is
his
Horus's
right-hand
first
man.
captain.
Yeah, so
Abaddon follows
he's already
Horus.
a fully...
He-
okay.
Abaddon's been, at this point, Abaddon is sucking Horus's dick hard.
He's ride or die with Horus.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
yeah. So what happened was
Oh, he's ride or die.
Ride or
Yeah.
die, yeah. So the first thing before they actually need to take on the Emperor is that they need to deal with the loyalists to the Emperor in their own legions, in their own ones.
Because not every Space Marine in the Legion was like, hey, we should turn
They're
against
not
the Emperor.
robots. They do have like their own opinions and
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
So where these 4 legions selected, they selected individuals that they deemed were loyal to the Emperor, and told them to go down to this planet called Istvaan III, and they would just be like, hey, there's some traders down there. Would you mind going down there and taking it out? This is 4 legions. This is Sons of Horus, World Eaters, Emperor's Children, Death Guard. Would you guys just go down and deal with them? And then all these different mishmash of squads were like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then
whoever was around.
they went down, and then guess what happened? The virus bombed the planet with the loyalists on the planet. Yeah,
Yeah, so to explain the virus bombing,
it's basically imagine a planet, but now it's been
it gets covered in a deathly gas that will kill any of them. If the Space Marines have like the smallest like nick in their armor, it'll just like kill them.
it will still go
Oh,
through.
but
But then,
goes through there.
but then when this like gas cloud covers the entire planet, they then send down lasers which ignite it, so then it scorches the earth.
Yeah,
and
so
it
not
burns
only is your
everything.
skin melting, but now it's melting because it's on fire.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm going to get into the Flight of the Eisenstein as well.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
worry, I can see your eyes looking at me.
I know, it's my favorite part.
I know. The loyalists stood their ground. They were forewarned about this happening, so they got underground as best they could and tried hiding wherever they could to try and deal with this. And they kept the traitors at bay for a good amount of time and delayed them as long as they could before they were ultimately destroyed and bombed to oblivion.
Because they're basically hid underground.
Yeah, but
So they weren't affected by the...
Or most of them died. Like 90%
most
of them died.
Yeah.
Oh, so they
but
still
the
did.
remaining loyalists still held up a good fight.
Yeah.
But the problem and delayed them just enough that because what happened next was the reason why they were standing their ground, and that is because they had hope. A ship of loyalist Death Guard were able to escape and managed to get back to Terra and warn Dorn and the Emperor of Horus's betrayal.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this did not sit well with Dorn. The Death Guard captain was a Chad named Garro and warned Dorn, like, hey, your big brother Horus is a traitor. Turned his back on the Emperor, got your brothers to turn their backs as well, and then killed all the loyalists in their legion. And Dorn was like, I'm gonna fucking end you for saying that.
Oh, so he was not believing...
He didn't believe Garro.
Didn't believe
Garro
him at
is
all.
an absolute, like, legend, though.
Yeah, here, I got a quote as well. Garro says to Dorn, "Are you blind?" he whispered. Dorn was thunder incarnate. "What did you say to me?" "I asked if you were blind, Lord, because I fear you must be." These words came out of nowhere. "Only one struck by such a terrible ailment could be as you are. Yours is the blindness that only a brother might have. That of a keen judgment clouded by admiration and respect. Clouded by your love for your kinsman, the Warmaster." It was not often that Rogel Dorn's stern mask was cracked, but it did so now. The fury of a god made flesh erupted upon his aspect, and the Primarch drew his powerful chainsword in a flashing golden arc of roaring death. "I rescind my former statement," he bellowed. "Get on your knees and accept your death while you still have a chance to die like an Astartes."
Jesus.
That was after he backhanded Garro across the room.
Yeah, across the room. Yeah, on top of that. But things were tempered down because there was another woman named Mercedes who, again, this is another subplot as well, but there's like a lady that claims to be a saint for the Emperor along with them.
The Emperor saved her in a flash of golden light when a demon tried to attack her and all that.
Yeah.
And now she thinks that
she thinks she's a saint.
And she has one of the Lectitia Divinitatis.
And she basically starts the whole
Religion.
religion of it all. Religion of the Emperor.
Yeah.
This is its beginnings. But they also show picked feeds and different types of evidence and information proving what Garro is saying is correct.
And they use
I thought you were
psychers to
saying
go...
pig
Psychers,
feet. So I'm like,
No, pig
yeah.
feet, no.
And to point, yeah, pick feeds is like their way, like pictures and all that, like and images and all that.
yeah.
So this is also when Malcador the Sigilite comes up. Have we spoken about Malcador before?
We did in the Council of Nikea in the Magnus episode.
So to further put into Malcador who he is, Malcador is a human, but he is the most powerful psyker next to the Emperor and Magnus.
how did he become so powerful if he's just...
He just was born like that and has that connection to the warp. Anyways, what you need to know is that he's basically the Merlin to the Emperor. To the Emperor's King Arthur. He's his right-hand man. He makes sure that everything that happens in the shadows that needs to happen does happen. He's the one that makes sure that the Emperor... He wants humanity to thrive and Biggie to be the leader.
Yeah.
And he'll do whatever he can. But he's also big boy psyker, quite powerful, and then he confirms everything that they're saying. And then Dawn's just like, okay, we got to deal with Horus and the traitors. So... Whilst this is happening, the traitorous brothers tried to convince the others. Fulgrim went to his brother in the Iron Hands, Horus Magnus, the guy with literally the Iron Hands, and trying to convince him to turn. They end up fighting and forced to retreat, leaving each other bitter with the other. And this was also quite sad because out of most of them, like their relationship was actually probably one of the closest.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, I was like pretty much up there.
Yeah.
The loyalist forces began amassing, ready to take on Horus and the traitorous brothers, with Horus Magnus leading it.
Well, not all of them knew because of warp storms. Some of them didn't know that this was going on.
I'm getting to that.
Oh, sorry. No, I just, yeah.
Yeah. So the word bearers were also creating warp storms, which means that messages and all of this was not known.
It's almost like interference. Like
and trying to run interference to try and keep everybody segregated.
Yep.
But leading his Iron Hands, Horus Magnus was also leading Vulcan of the Salamanders and Corvus Corax of the Raven Guard to go take on the traitors that have now gone to Istvaan III. This was a pure Space Marine fight. No human or Mechanicus forces were here at all. The three Loyalist forces were actually pushing back the four traitors and on the verge of winning. And then the Loyalists got word that they were being reinforced by the Iron Warriors, the Alpha Legion, Night Lords, and Word Bearers. Oh yay! Oh no! Why are why are you shooting at us?
Yeah, because instead of
Because-
3 against 3, it was going to now
Well,
be
now it's
like
3 against 4, and now it's
Yeah, now
3
it's gonna
against 7, 8.
yeah.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all 3 of the Loyalist legions get fucking massacred. To put this into perspective as to how bad this was and how bad the Loyalists were fucked, the Raven Guard brought about 80,000 Space Marines to this fight. They barely made it out with 4.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Barely made it out with 5. Like,
Salamanders had a similar kind of number.
Iron Hands was similar.
Iron
and
Hands, pretty much all of them died.
almost all of them pretty much died, yeah.
Including their prime.
Yeah. So I'm getting
Sorry!
Getting to
sorry.
that. Start getting
You're
so
taking
excited.
too long to get into
no,
it.
I'm going the right pace. You're just getting too eager.
Oh, that's the twin.
No.
No?
The more Primarchs die in the Horus Heresy than what you know.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
I
So-
thought they were all alive.
As I'm getting to this now. So imagine like pure carnage happening with Marine fighting Marine. Nobody knows who's loyal and who's traitor.
Yeah.
Except for the traitors. They all know who they are.
Primarchs are in there
Yeah.
in the middle fighting,
Yeah.
carving other Space Marines up.
Fulgrim and Ferris are fighting each other. They meet each other on the battlefield. And it was a tragic fight of brother against brother. And they were actually really close. Like, a lot close. Like, they were polar opposites to each other. They were yin-yang. Ferris was very like
Straightforward.
very straightforward, like autistic to the point, like he was like a brick, like, you know, he just didn't care about, like, you know, aesthetics or anything, that kind of thing. Fulgrim, on the other hand, was very much about, like, you know, doing everything perfect and everything has to look beautiful and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they actually really complemented each other quite
Yeah.
well because they wanted to do everything efficiently and perfectly.
Yep.
And yeah, Ferris was actually really close to winning the fight until the demon blade that Fulgrim had, because that's how Fulgrim was being corrupted, was that he had taken a demon blade that was corrupting him slowly.
Oh yeah, because isn't the blade that he has is a demon like living inside it? Or
I think it's a keeper of secrets.
Yeah.
Like,
we'll get into that in Fulgrim's own
Fulgrim-
episode, because that's a
definitely.
long story.
It's a long story and a very good one as well.
An amazing story.
Yeah. The demon inside Fulgrim's blade wouldn't let him lose, and then proceeded to cut off Ferrus Manus' head.
Jeez.
Ferrus Manus is dead. He's the first Primarch to fall in this. And Fulgrim went straight into a demonic despair and then let the demon take over because he didn't want to feel the despair.
Yeah.
On the other side of the battlefield, Corax of the Raven Guard fucked up Lorgar of the Word Bearers.
Go Corax.
Like, Corax being the absolute beast that he is, because, like, not all Primarchs are good fighters. Like, they're all Primarchs. They'll body anybody. But when it's Primarch versus Primarch, there are just some that are inherently better fighters. Corax is definitely one of them, because he's the assassin of all of them. So this is like an assassin versus a priest.
Yeah.
And then he was this close to killing Lorgar until good emo boy Conrad Kurz.
Good emo boy!
Yeah, good emo boy of the Night Lords came in and stopped him. And then because of that, Corax was forced to jetpack away and retreat.
Away. Yep.
Vulcan of the Salamanders was so upset by what was happening around him, watching his sons die. Like, out of all the Primarchs, Vulcan is the one that cared the most. He cared the most about everybody, about all life, cared about his sons. So Perturabo of the Iron Warriors threw a nuke at him. Like, literally nuked him and all of his sons around him. And this because Vulcan of the Salamanders is also a perpetual, he can't die. He's like we said, like Lobos, he'll just keep coming back.
Just come back. Yeah, even if there's one cell or whatever.
But technically, he was the second Primarch to die.
Technically, the second one to die, but
Yes.
like, you know.
Yeah. But he also dies several times.
Yeah, a million times, because he gets captured by Conrad Kurz,
Oh,
the Primarch best known for torturing people.
so he tortures him, then he comes back to life, and then he tortures him again.
This essentially does horrible shit to him.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into.
And I suppose he doesn't have any, he knows that he's going to come back. so he can like do the most depraved.
Yeah.
Well,
but
the,
it's
so
more or
the
less-
torture cycles around, like, he puts them in scenarios where Vulcan can't save all of his men or can't save the humans from this
Yeah.
disaster.
Throws
So it's like
them out of an
psychological
airlock,
torture.
does everything, like throws them out of an airlock, puts them in an unwinnable maze, and then like
Yeah.
just
And taunts him
the
and
most
everything, yeah.
like sore but horrible, you know.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like sore but horrible. But but, yeah,
'Cause Sore's
but
not
eventually,
horrible.
eventually, just so you know, he does eventually break out and then gets back.
Yeah.
But at this point so far, yeah, this is how the Horus Heresy began, with one Primarch dead, one retreated, and one's captured. This will be forever known as the Dropsite Massacre. So if I ever mention the Dropsite Massacre, that's what
this is
this is what I'm
what it is.
talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then that information reeled through the rest of the Imperium.
But yeah, so Morty, Horus, Lorgar, and like
is the-
all of
this is
those,
the one
they're
line-
all rejoicing, like, yes,
This
we've
is the
killed
one-
off a
we've
bunch
killed
of
This
them.
is the
Yeah.
one and only time all traitor Primarchs and all traitor legions were together.
Yeah.
So everybody, they were all the legions were standing up and looking up at Horus with Conrad Kurz, Angron, Mortarion, Alfarius, Fulgrim, who's now a demon, and then who am I forgetting? Perturabo.
Purdy, yeah. And
Not Magnus, sorry. Magnus is the only one
Magnus
that wasn't
isn't
there.
there, yeah.
I take that back, what I just said.
Yeah.
But
So okay, so at this point,
Mm-hmm.
have the traders like even met the like chaos or anything like that, or they're just
some have.
they're
Some
just
have.
Yeah.
purely
Well, Magnus is now basically a demon Primarch, but he's in
Magnus
the
is
warp.
now with the Zinch.
Yeah.
Magnus is now.
But he's on the planet of wizards in the warp. He's
Yeah.
not with them.
Fulgrim has now turned into demon possession and going more and more into Slanesh.
Yes.
and that's because
Horus
he's,
has taken his bit of touch of heresy.
Yeah, Angron's on the pathway to becoming the Blade of Corn.
yeah demon yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
his herald. And
Yeah.
then Morty's on the long but slow path to becoming the herald of Noble.
It's a good time for the
Yeah.
warp gods.
Well, God,
Conrad Kurz absolutely detested anything involving chaos. Perturabo didn't want any part of it, but was also fascinated by it.
Yeah.
Lorgar was already balls deep in it.
He was balls deep in
And
it.
nobody knows anything about Alfarius and Omegon and what they were on about.
Yeah, because they
like-
were also there, yeah.
Yeah, because Alfarius was also there too. Yeah, that's all the Primarchs. And
Yeah.
obviously Horus was... And then, funnily enough, Horus met with Fulgrim, like, after he was a demon. He's just like, you're not my brother. And he's just like, you keep doing you and keep listening to me, but when this is over, I'm going to get Fulgrim back. Because he loved his brother.
okay, he didn't like the demons.
That's something I've also forgot to mention until now. The reason why Horus was able to get so many Primarchs on his side was because Horus genuinely loved his brothers.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
genuinely cared about them, and he had spent so much time like investing
In
you know,
their
like,
relationship.
into the
He was super
relationships of-
charismatic.
Super charismatic, and that was his. I'll be honest, that was his power of being a leader. Each
Yeah.
Primarch has their own like ability and power. Horus's was charisma.
And that's to a degree what Abaddon inherited and why
Yeah.
he's been able to get everyone together in the Black Legion in 40k. Because his Primarch's special thing was that he
Being a
could
leader.
rally people together and be a leader. Like most of the other Primarchs loved Horus more than any of the others.
And it's also because of that, a bunch of human armies, human detachments, like billions of soldiers, like
And
turn-
Admech.
and I get into that as well.
Oh, sorry.
Like billions of soldiers just turned on the Emperor and just like turned and said, Horus is the one that has been fighting with us.
Yeah.
And
And you've been sitting on a
there's
chair.
there's a
Yeah.
story in the Siege of Terra where it follows this human where he was like, Horus spoke to me.
Yeah.
Like he actually took a moment to spoke to me. I will follow him until I die.
Yeah.
And then it was the Admech thing where Mars went into a revolt because half of them sided with Horus and the other half sided with Emperor.
So it was like a civil war sort of thing.
Mars went into a straight up civil war where Mars was like taken off the board and Dorn was like, I don't want to deal with that.
yeah. And the Wordbearer's storms were stopping. Sorry.
Sorry, you do. I'm getting to it.
Oh no, yeah.
It's
I'm just-
literally what's next.
Okay, yeah. I know it's what's next. That's why I was bringing it up.
Yeah, I know.
I'm leading you in. Go on.
It's because you're also getting excited about it as well.
Of course.
So, because of this massacre, the Wordbearers were able to create these giant warp storms and make them even bigger. Because the more death and betrayal that happened, the more the storms grew. Because whatever emotions feed the warp, feed these storms. So they were able to do these rituals to also assist in creating them. Guilliman and the Ultramarines, like I said, are the biggest ones next to the biggest ones, with Lorgar being close second.
They were their biggest threat to Horus's plan.
Yeah, because Horus was just like
Them and the Blood Angels.
he was like Horus said to Lorgar, "Go deal with the Ultramarines and deal with Guilliman. If you don't even try and turn him, just kill him.
Kill him,
because he's
yeah.
not going to.
He's not going to turn.
Or
He's-
take out as much of his army as you
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
because otherwise the Ultramarines are going to destroy us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Guilliman was the most successful at conquering worlds. He had the whole Macragge system. He has had
500 strong.
500 planets under his rule, each developing up their own weapons and manufacturing
Like I'll bring
their
up
own
I'll bring
stuff.
up a map of it, but imagine that's the galaxy. That was how much was the Macraggian Empire.
Yeah, it's like a sixth of it
Ultramar,
or
yeah.
something.
Yeah,
Ultramar system.
like a
Yeah.
big chunk of
A
it.
huge
is-
chunk of it
yeah.
was just Guilliman.
And because he's all logistics, and also
That's his power.
yeah.
Basically, he can run Excel.
But yeah, he can take in data faster than any supercomputer that the humans have been able
Even
to
better
develop.
than the other Primarchs.
Yeah, and he's just a genius.
Yeah.
And
His-
also he's really nice and he relates to his.
He's a
Space
different type of
Marines really
he's a
well.
different type of charismatic leader.
Yes, yeah, he's like a stats nerd with a little bit of charisma, but the compassion and empathy that means people like him.
That,
Out of
yeah.
all of them, I'd say he's the most balanced.
Yes,
I'm
so glad he didn't say boring.
No, I wasn't going to say because I was going to say mid, but that also doesn't. But that also, he's a good template base plate for everybody else. Too.
Yeah.
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 And because of that, the Ultramarine and Guilliman were unaware of the rebellion, and then Horus sent word to them and be like, "Hey, the word bearers are just going to come, and then you guys are going to go on a mission together of reconciliation after Monarchia." And Guilliman was like, "Perfect idea."
Yeah, because
Wordbearers-
the Emperor had used the Ultramarines to destroy Monarchia, so
Yeah.
the Wordbearers hated the Ultramarines.
Yes, yeah. So there was a lot of love lost between
Yeah.
them. But then on top of that, they were just like, "Sure, no problem. We want to reconcile with the word bearers too."
Yeah.
And then the word bearers got there and completely shanked them, set their fleets on fire, destroyed Calth, which was where they were all mustering, which is one of the
Worlds in
Ultramarine planets,
Ultramar.
yeah, and completely blindsided them and decimated them. The Blueberries were able to fight back a little bit and then chase Lorgar through the warp.
Fight back a little bit. They basically turned a losing situation and then turned
Into an
around,
almost win.
gathered everyone together, and kicked the Wordbearers' butts
Yeah.
so that they had to retreat.
Yeah. Well, they also-
Guilliman went
they
on a
also
slaughtering
They also
phase.
retreated because they turned the sun supernova.
Yes, but also Guilliman was like, screw these warp-using bastards.
Yeah.
I'm done with forgiveness.
Yeah.
Lorgar, I'm going to kill you.
You can't stop me. I have the power of Excel and Microsoft on my side.
Yeah, pre-crash.
Yeah, pre-crash. And then, so Guilliman's now chasing Lorgar and eventually Angron through all of Macragge, all of Ultramar. Then there's, at this same time, the Thramas Crusade is happening, where the Lion and the Dark Angels are being preoccupied by Kurz and the Night Lords, and they have their own shenanigans where basically the Night Lords take on the Dark Angels.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's
I'm
great.
again
It's really good.
There's also a point in the war where the warp storms were literally cutting everybody off from everybody. And then it got to the point where Guilliman, Sanguinius of the Blood Angels, and the Lion were able to find each other. They were stuck on Macragge, which is Guilliman's home planet. All three of them were unaware whether or not the Emperor was still alive, or if Terra was still standing, or if any of their brothers were still alive, or which ones were dead. So they decided that, to be on the safe side, they make their own Imperium. They created the Imperium Secundeez, and just in case the original Imperium had fallen.
They always
naming-
use that Secundus second,
Yeah,
Thranas
Secundus is
third.
second. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
That's used throughout Warhammer. So,
Warhammer.
Yeah. So they named Sanguinius as the new emperor, Guilliman as the governor, and Lion as the Lord Protector, obviously. But this quickly fell apart thanks to the Among Us Lord named Conrad Kurz, because he was basically running through, causing shenanigans,
hiding on the Lion's ship.
hiding on the Lion ship, just killing Dark Angels for fun, because he was trying to get to Sevatar and trying to get to the Lion. And then on top of that, Conrad Kurz also tried to have a go at Guilliman's mum.
Yes, but it's a really interesting face-off, because the Dark Angels are all about your regal knights,
Yeah.
and Night Lords are stealth tactic murderers.
Yeah.
So it's I want to face off and square off against you in a sword fight, I'm going to sneak
sort
up on
of-
you when you're asleep and slit your throat, kind of thing.
The best way I always pictured it, it was like the Starks versus the Boltons in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
That's the best way I could think of it.
But if he... Okay. I'm still on the bit where he wanted to have sex with his mum.
No, wanted to have a go at
murder.
him, to kill her.
Oh.
Yeah,
What do you
he's
mean,
like, he's, no, because like
And I'm like,
Gilliman's
wait.
adopted mother.
No.
Because I was like, wait, wouldn't that make it his mother as well?
not equate Primarchs to sex, except for Fulgrim.
Okay. Alright, because I'm like, wait, what?
No, he wanted to have a go at her, like as in kill her, just to piss off Gilliman.
To be fair, there's a few sex crimes that the Night Lords are responsible for.
Yeah, before they became Space Marines, though. So obviously. But yes, that quickly fell apart because Conrad Kurz and his shenanigans. The Dark Age. It's also at this point as well, Sanguinius is getting visions of the future the same way Conrad Kurz gets visions of the future.
Okay.
But like I said in previous episodes, Conrad Kurz sees all the bad futures, whereas Sanguinius sees all the good futures. It is at this point Sanguinius sees a future involving his death at the hands of Horus.
Oh.
So Sanguinius is now plagued with these constant visions of this future.
His own death.
He's seeing his own death, and it's like I said, the difference is that they both of them know that these futures they see are like irrefutable.
It's gonna happen
and
regardless.
cannot really be changed.
Yeah.
So Conrad Kurz looked at it from a fatalist point of view, like there's no point in doing anything different because destiny is written in stone. But then Sanguinius on the other side, this is just a different mentality shift where Sanguinius was like, okay, so I know how the future's going to happen. I'm going to do whatever I can between now and then, and sort of thing, like, and I'm going to meet my destiny head on. And if I do what I can to try and circumvent it, if I can, but do what I can for everybody.
Are you going to talk about the meeting between those two? Because that's really interesting. I do like that.
I will do that in their own Primarch episodes, but I do mention it here as well, where the Lion is able to get Conrad Kurz imprisoned, and then there's a moment there where all four of them are talking to each other about their hypocrisies.
Oh no, I meant when the Night Haunter visits him in the temple.
Yeah.
Oh, you do that in their own episode. Yeah, that's
fine. It's a great story. There's so many great stories in the Horus Heresy. I've effectively cut out 95% of what happens.
Oh, I mean, there's
and I'm just
400 books.
I'm keeping the bare essentials because a lot of like I said, a lot of them are good points, good stories, but it doesn't move the plot from where we have to go, if you know what I mean.
For what we're trying to get across.
They're all like,
it's the difference between story points and character development.
Yeah.
Or it sounds like they're almost like side quests, like
sort of like side stories. Like
they're important to the characters, not important to what we're trying to get across in this episode.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to detail what happens. It's also at that point where, like I said, Kurz gets captured by the Lion, and then all four of them have like a very intense debate, and then Imperium Secundeez just kind of falls in on itself. Then the Ultramarines and the Lion and the Dark Angels also try and help Sanguinius get through this blockade so that Sanguinius and the Blood Angels can get to Terra, because they know that's where he's meant to be.
Yeah.
And before Sanguinius goes to Terra, he yeets Kurz into the void. And so as a so long brother, like like he says to Kurz before he puts him in cryo freeze, he's just like, the Emperor may forgive you, I don't. Goodbye, brother. And then just like, and then chucks him in the void.
But the Lion wanted to behead him right there.
Lion wanted to behead him, but
that's because Kurz was telling.
Yeah, I don't want to talk. No, I don't want to talk about all of it.
It's so
do you know how hard it was to try and create this without mentioning all of that? It's this big, this whole script.
I understand. It's like,
I know it's hard, but like, there's a lot we want to talk about, but we can't because otherwise we'll be here all day.
Okay.
Which also is not a problem, but I'm trying to think about the viewers.
Yes. Okay. All right. Move on then.
Yeah. Russ tries to take on Horus. Leman Russ takes this Emperor-powered spear and injures him. But the problem is that further pushes Horus into his warp taint and makes him even more corrupted and more solidified in what he's meant to be doing is correct.
It's so hard to hold my tongue.
I know. But try, okay?
I'm trying.
In their own episodes, then you can go full ham.
We will.
Jagatai Khan and the White Scars make their way to Terra to help reinforce it with Dorn,
which was
also very interesting because nobody knew which side the Khan would join because he was a bit of a wild card and nobody knew where his allegiances were.
Yeah, he likes doing his own thing.
Yeah, because he's freeze the wind.
Yeah.
This civil war went on for 9 years. That's how long this civil war went on for. So that's why it takes like 45, 50 plus books to get through it all.
To get it, yeah.
And now the stage is set for the Siege of Terra. Horus is on his way with his traitorous brothers and legions to take on the Emperor, with billions of soldiers and Mechanicus at his side behind him, going straight for the Emperor.
Has Magnus rejoined the play as well?
He
at
has
this point?
now. At this point, he has. It's all traitor legions, all of them, and billions of humans, and Mechanicus versus Dorn, Sanguinius, the Khan, and whatever human forces and Mechanicus they have on Terra.
And the Emperor.
And that's where we're going to leave it for this episode.
And isn't Vulcan there too?
I'm going to get that next episode.
Next episode, cool. No, but you were just listed. You
Yeah,
listed
I know, but I had
Primarch.
that set for the first part of the episode. Is that as a surprise kind of thing?
I spoiled it.
Trust me.
No,
Don't worry,
but you
I will
just
forget.
It's right. We can repeat things like that
Yeah.
because it solidifies it.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
He's there.
Yeah.
Vulcan.
Vulcan
But
is there.
now the stage
Vulcan.
is set for the Siege of Terra, with the borders set and the pieces are moving.
But also is Vulcan there?
Vulcan's there. Vulcan's there now, but they didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
And also Vulcan's not really much of a player in it, except when it comes to Magnus,
Yes.
which I will get into in the next episode.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. It's not the guy with the pointy ears. Vulcan? Star Trek?
Oh, Vulcan,
No.
yeah. No, none of us watch Star Trek.
Well, let me tell you about Star Trek.
Insert cricket noise.
I know
Vulcan.
a lot about Star
Giant
Trek.
hammer and flamers.
I love Star Trek.
And black skin.
Yes.
And red eyes.
Red eyes.
Yeah.
And the nicest Primarch.
Yeah. And the biggest smile.
The biggest smile, and he also likes giving them hugs.
Yeah, he does.
But he's also, his legion is the only one where the Space Marines are allowed to go home and visit their families.
Yeah.
Oh.
The only one. Yeah.
Yeah, none of the others let them do it.
Yeah.
So he is the nice one.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's where we're going to leave it. For
No,
this
because we're
episode.
going back
No,
to
and we're
the
setting
lion dropping bombs on Ultramar.
setting the stage for the Siege of Terra, and that's where we're going to love and leave you. See you guys next time.
Alright, heresy rules.
Bye.
For the glory of chaos!